All right. I really hope I've got it set up correctly. Hello, everybody. I hope you are enjoying all of the wonderful designer tips and tricks virtual shows that have been going on for the last 3 days. This is day 3. I am Monique with Ladybug's Cabin here in Northwest Montana, and it's a beautiful sunny day today, and the garden is thriving with all the rain that we've been having lately. So I thought it was appropriate that today I'm going to talk about using one of my favorite tools in my tool chest, which is Terial Magic. Terial Magic, if you have never used it before, or maybe even never heard of it before, it's still a relatively new product. It's been out on the market for a few years now, but it's a fantastic spray-on stabilizer for fabric. You can use it for a number of different varieties and reasons in your fabric pieces. One of my favorite things to do with this is to create three-dimensional flower petals for some of my applique patterns. But you can also use this lovely stuff to stabilize fabric in the hoop. So if you'd like to do machine embroidery, this is a fantastic thing to do where you can spray this onto your fabric, put it in the hoop, especially if it's a garment and you don't want to put it on all of those stabilizers that you have to cut away or tear away and then you have that little scratchy bit left over. This would help alleviate that from having to be there. You can use this on t-shirt quilts. So if you wanted to make a t-shirt quilt and you didn't want to have to fuse all of the interfacing behind the t-shirts in order to make those t-shirts not so stretchy and a lot more manageable when you're sewing on them, you can use this spray and then you can choose to wash it out after you're done. So it's non-toxic too, which is lovely. I also like to use it on specialty fabrics that are sometimes hard to sew with because they slide around a little bit too much. Or if you're doing art quilting and you want to use cheesecloth as one of your fabrics to work with, that also can be really hard to work with because it moves around so easily. If you spray it with the Terial Magic, it will stiffen up and act like normal cotton. It makes it so much more user-friendly to use. You can also use this to stiffen up fabric and actually directly feed it through your printer. You don't have to worry about doing all of the, the bevel jet set and all those other little things. You can actually stiffen your fabric up, put it through either a laser printer or an inkjet printer, print directly on the fabric, and then I just wash out the Terial Magic after I'm done. And then I'll show you actually here in a little bit one of the favorite things that I like to do with that technique. And also for anybody who has a die cut machine or one of the scan to cut machines, stiffening your fabric up with the Terial Magic first before you send that through on your with your die cutting machines, this is a fantastic way of knowing that your fabric's going to behave when it's on the cutting mat. So again, great little spray, super easy to use. And in fact, even though I don't have enough time to do the full thing because you have one of the steps is to let things dry, I'm going to at least show you a little bit on how it works. So I'm going to switch over to my camera here and show you. I have some fabric here. Doesn't matter if there's wrinkles in it or not, because when you go to spray it, I usually just create like a little well in my hand and then just spray down in there, get it nice and wet. The main goal is to saturate your fabric completely and get it nice and saturated with this spray. On a hot, sunny day like today, this is not going to take very long for this to dry. But even that, in the guise of doing the cooking show version of this, once I have this part done, I will show you what happens next. So I've got this nice and saturated, really well saturated through. You can kind of look and see if there's any dry spots left on the fabric, but this looks great. So at this point, I would just find a nice place for this to dry. You can put it on a clothesline or you can actually just, hang it outside. Right now, I just have it laying on the little bowl. This in a hot summer day is basically going to take maybe about 2 to 3 minutes for it to dry enough for me to take it to my ironing board and press it. In the winter time when it's not so hot out, it can take about 10 to 15 minutes. You don't want it to let it dry completely. It's not a tragedy if you do, but you just need it to be slightly damp to the touch, just slightly damp. And then you take it to your ironing board. And in the magic of the cooking show, you would take this to your ironing board and press it with a nice hot dry iron, and you will actually see it change the hand of the fabric as it heats up. But all of a sudden, that really floppy fabric is now the consistency of paper. So it's a really fun and easy technique. That's it. That's all you have to do to treat your fabric with Terial Magic. Now at this point, it's ready for you to do whatever you'd like to do. I used this fabric in a recent class that I did with some on my online with my website on creating woven backgrounds. And we put these fun little flowers on the woven background. And I wanted to add extra petals. So by choosing this fabric, which was pretty close to the commercial fabric that we were using on the flowers, I cut out a few extra petals and then stitched them down to really create some fun pop on those flowers. And it doesn't take very much to do it. You just add that little extra and then you have that fun little extra pop on your projects. The other lovely thing about Terial Magic when you've treated your fabric with it, first off, you cannot scorch your fabric once you've got Terial Magic on it. There's a little coating on there, and it's unlike starch. So even though it stiffens up like starch would, you can't scorch your fabric with the Terial Magic on it, which is brilliant. The other thing is that you can take a curling iron to curl it. You can actually just use your fingers to do a little finger curl, and it's going to hold that shape, which is really fun. So if you ever did origami too, you could have some fun with that as well. And the other thing I love about it is that the edges are not going to fray. The Terial Magic spray keeps the edges from fraying. So if you're working with fabric that really tends to fray a lot, this is definitely a way that you can help that from happening. I was also going to show you by stiffening up the fabric, you can, this is just a plain piece of muslin that I stiffened up with the Terial Magic, and I ran it directly through my printer. So I printed out this fun little label that I wanted to do, and then I wash out the Terial Magic and I get my Inktense pencils out, and then I can color in my label for my quilt, specifically in the colors that I want to do. So this is a really fun way to really personalize your quilt label and your projects. It's a great and simple, easy way. So again, stiffen up a piece of light colored fabric or muslin, choose what design you want to make for your label, cut out your fabric into the 8.5 by 11, send it directly through your printer, wash out your fabric with, you let go of any of that Terial Magic that's still there, and then color in your label and you're ready to go. Now, because I love Terial Magic so much, I actually ended up designing a number of patterns that you can use with it. I've got my hollyhock pattern, which has optional instructions on how to create the 3-dimensional flowers. I have my Marisol's Garden, which is a sunflower pattern, again, using optional instructions on how to create petals that are 3-dimensional. And then there's the Indian paintbrush, which is really fun because you have the option, again, of having those petals that come up and off the quilt. I also have a number of other patterns too that uses the Terial Magic as an option. There's bitterroot, there is rhododendrons, my choir of poppies, and then of course I had the hollyhock, the Marisol's Garden, and the Indian paintbrush. So all of those are available on my website if that's something that you are interested in. You can also find me on my YouTube channel where I have a few demos of using like the Inktense pencils and also just a number of other things that I love to play with. I love blending between traditional quilting and art quilting. I think that those two worlds can really play well together. And if you're more into traditional quilting than just using the Terial Magic to create the printed labels where you can really personalize those labels for the quilts that you're making, that's a great way to use the product. As well as if you're using some really lightweight, like homespun fabrics that are unraveling on you and your seams, treat them with the Terial Magic and they're going to behave so much nicer until you can get that quilt completely put together. And then you don't have to worry about all of the unraveling that's happening in there or worrying about putting fray check on all of those seams, which can kind of get really thick and build up. The nice thing about Terial Magic is once it's in the quilt and then you've washed it, it will go away. So it's not going to change the feel of your quilt. It's not going to change the hand after the quilt is completed, but it's going to make your life a lot easier while you're making the quilt so that those fabrics don't unravel on you or fray and you have all of those extra little bits hanging around. I absolutely love this project. I was lucky enough to run into Terry, who made Terial Magics, at the Portland Quilt Market a few years ago when she first started. And I really do recommend going to her website, the Terial Arts website. They have some amazing projects, lots of really fun newsletters on how they're using this product. They use a lot more home decor, so you can actually get some fun little free ideas and projects and things on that and how to use it. She also makes some standalone flower patterns, you should even put in a vase. So again, it's really fun to use, and I have just been having a ball playing with her product. And like I said, this is one of my favorite tools that I keep in my tool chest at all times because I never know when it's going to come in handy. Um, if you have any questions, I know that these things go by really quickly. I would be happy to answer them. I will look through the list after this is over. And if you ever want to reach out to me, you can find me at ladybugscabin.com, my website there, and there's a little contact me there, or here on Facebook. I love to take questions here on Facebook. I also am on Instagram, and like I said, too, on YouTube. I do have a really fun demo on coloring with the Inktense pencils there. If you want to have some more information on those pencils, I do carry some of them on my site as well. So feel free to message me with any questions that you may have. They are permanent once you're done. You don't have to heat set with them, which is lovely, which is one of the reasons I love them as well. For the rest of today, next up on the designer tips and tricks is going to be Andy at True Blue Quilts. And she's going to be doing her talk at the top of the next hour. So for those in the East, it's at 3 o'clock. For those of us here in Mountain Time, it's at 1. Just know it's at the top of the next hour. Look for Andy at True Blue Quilts. And if you have missed any of these amazing demos over the last 3 days, you can find us at Designer Virtual Shows on Facebook. You can see the link in my little listing for today's lineup. But again, that's a group called Designer Virtual Shows here on Facebook. And you can get a chance to kind of go back and watch things again. I really appreciate the fact that you've joined me today. And I hope that I've given you some inspiration to try something new, or at least given you a few more ideas if you are already into the Terial Magic game and you love it as much as I do. Message me with any questions, and thank you so much for just being out there. We really appreciate being able to stay connected to you all in this crazy time that we're in. It's wonderful to be able to use technology for something so great. Just staying connected and feeling like there is the ability for us to still gather safely and share inspiration together. So thank you so much, and I hopefully will see you here again. Thanks. I will talk to you later.